So if somebody wanted to get a hold of you guys and learn more about your programs, how could they find you?
Well, the easiest is Google. Just Google. Throw it in the Google Capella University emergency management program, and you're going to get 1,000 results. And of course, we're on all the social medias as well. But our email, I'm trying to bring it up. I believe it's just capella.com, or edu. But let me look. Unless you have it off the top of your head, Charlene.
Did you want our URL? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
www.capella.edu.
Yeah, there we go.
Yes. So that's the easiest way. And the emergency management program, you'll find all the necessary information regarding our faculty, as well as Dr. Kemp's information. And he loves to talk emergency management. So if anyone has any questions or just trying to think through what their professional next steps would be, Dr. Kemp is your man.
All right. So,
and I get a lot of people will contact me on LinkedIn or whatever, and I'm open. I usually give my phone number out there and or whatever format they choose, and I probably have a conversation every other day with a potential student or someone that just wants to talk. Hey, I'm thinking about getting into it, and can I pick your brain type of deal? And I'm very open to do that. I'm more than happy to do that. I love doing it.
Awesome. Okay, so here's the toughest question of the day for everybody. All right, what book or books would you recommend to somebody who wants to get into emergency management or leadership?
Oh, that is a tough question because it depends on the background. But it's still it's an old book, but it's a classic book, and I say Angry Earth almost every time. And the reason that I say Angry Earth, especially for when I'm talking mostly to my practitioners that want to get in, is because it really does show that emergency management just isn't the response aspect. Emergency management, is a 365 all the way around the block, every aspect. It touches every aspect of society. And that book really brings the social side into emergency management and tells you, if you want to change, you want to reduce risk, you want to start creating resilient communities, you've got to understand how disasters impact society at the basic level and the complexities of it. So Angry Earth is, even though it's an oldie, it's still hands down my favorite book to promote out there. Which I should be promoting our own books, but hey, Angry Earth.
Charlene?
So I was thinking. And I don't know, I guess I'd have to lean on Michael, since that is primarily his discipline. I probably would think of an article or something before I thought of a book. So
sure, articles are good. Any publication.
So he was talking about Angry Earth, and I'm like, wait a minute, I didn't read that.
I wrote it down too.
Yeah, I was like, I didn't read that. I should read that one. Yeah, I can't think of anything off the top of my head. I sure can't. Sorry.
That's why I always call this the hardest question. Yeah, it's definitely.
Well, I think if you look at anything that has to do with how societies create disaster, obviously especially when we're talking natural disaster, we always think of the water, the fire, the wind, the snow, the elements, the natural side of it. But, what we never think about, especially those outside of the field, I shouldn't say that for us in the field because we're getting better at this every day. We generally don't think about the human element beyond the suffering and the response. And a lot of situations, we create our own vulnerabilities, and disasters simply take advantage of those vulnerabilities. And the more vulnerability that we have, the consequences of the disaster is usually greater. And once we start thinking that way and understanding those concepts, then we can look at mitigating disasters. And we know from the studies that are out there that, FEMA will say that for every $1 of mitigation you spend, you save $4 in response. Well, my own research in the Red River Valley on flooding in municipalities kicks that number up to high as $7.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's something there, that's been reproduced over and over again, that the dollars that you save in mitigation, save. And that's dollars. Also think of the misery that it saves and the lives it saves, and that you can't put a number on. And the only way you can get to that point where that's more important, because let's face it, the response is sexy, right?
Right.
Everybody loves a response. We were talking about this earlier. When the response happens, you turn into the fire mode, you turn into the police mode, you turn into that command control mode to get things done and save lives and protect property. And, that's kind of what draws people. But the reality is, if we can prevent those or diminish those impacts from happening in the first place, then we're really doing our job, and we're really getting the most bang for our buck, if you will. So any article that focuses on those relationships, that's what I would say. It doesn't have to be angry, or anything that makes those connections, I think, is good.
I think you helped me, Michael, think about the article I was thinking about, because I couldn't remember the whole title. It's a Creating Resilient Cities article, but the first part is what I couldn't remember. So it's Urban Hazard Mitigation, Creating Resilient Cities.
Oh, wow.
Because I was just stuck in the Creating Resilient Cities, and I knew that wasn't the full title. And I was like, okay, I know what it is now. So it's Urban Hazard Mitigation, Creating Resilient Cities. It's kind of old, but that was sort of like one of those first articles that I really read in the field. And since then, there's been other articles related to creating resilient communities. And, there's been a series of resilient communities type articles afterwards. So it goes back to what Michael said, is the before planning process. And I think we all focus on the actual disaster, but we haven't created communities that are prepared to deal with the disasters.
That's so right, regarding not creating communities. And I think that's one of the reasons why Administrator Long from FEMA really wants to focus on creating the resilient city, the resilient people with emergency management. And I just actually talked to another person the other day regarding civil defense and how we moved away from that civil defense model to where each community and each individual had responsibility for their own preparedness, and then to this whole thing of where people believe that FEMA's coming in to save the day, which is not really their role. But that's a really good point, the creating resilient cities. I'm glad that you put that one out there, because I really recommend anybody who's doing any kind of research or reading in emergency management that they really embrace the concept of resiliency and what that means. Before I let you guys go, is there anything that you'd like to say to the emergency manager out there?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say, I was talking earlier about the first, second, and third generation emergency managers, and we really taken the profession, and I call it a profession proudly, to not get into new debate, but I think we are there, that the scholar practitioner, the work between the academic and the practitioner is so important to this profession and to keep it growing, that when there's opportunities to do internships, or there's opportunities to allow a researcher in to do research, look for those opportunities and embrace them. And also, we owe it to our profession to be educated in our profession. So if you have the opportunity and whatnot, read up, keep up on the profession, keep learning, keep the continuing education going, because, at the end of the day, when we're talking about those resilience communities and we're talking about putting plans in place, we're really responsible for lives, and we owe it to the people that we serve, and we owe it to the profession to make it the best profession that we can possibly have. And that takes work. So just don't stop working.
What I'd like to share is going back to what you mentioned before when you discussed working in the law enforcement environment, public safety environment, how you sort of adapt some of those mindsets. I would encourage the emergency manager to do the opposite, to help individuals in a multidisciplinary scenario to adapt some of the principles of emergency management, because you have the same power of persuasion that they do. And so try to help your best practices, use your best practices to help them do a better job with what they're doing. And I think there's a great opportunity because everyone's at the table now in coming, as I mentioned, from the healthcare, you have the nurses and the doctors at the table. You have the public safety at the table. You have so many other disciplines that do not understand the principles of emergency management. It's a great opportunity to extend what you already know and help to educate people so that they can go back home and be more prepared and have their family prepared, because they won't be able to do their jobs if they're not prepared at home. So use your skills to help the regular everyday citizen become more educated in emergency management. And of course, to complement what Michael says, that means you have to be educated in your discipline. So I think that's all I have to share.
Well, both of you, thank you so much for spending time with us today, and looking forward to hearing from you guys again. And if you guys ever want to come back on, let me know.
All right.
Yeah,
Thank
absolutely.
you.
Thank you, Todd.
All right.